Hello, I'm Dr. Scott Watier.
And I'm Tommy Welling, and you're listening to the Fasting for Life podcast.
This podcast is about using fasting as a tool to regain your health, achieve ultimate wellness, and live the life you truly deserve.
Each episode is a short conversation on a single topic with immediate actionable steps. We cover everything from fat loss and health and wellness to the science of lifestyle design.
We started Fasting for Life because of how fasting has transformed our lives, and we hope to share the tools that we have learned along the way. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fasting for Life podcast. My name is Dr. Scott Watier, and I'm here as always with my good friend and colleague Tommy Welling. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hey Scott, how are you?
Fantastic, my friend. Excited for today's conversation where we're going to get into a listener Q&A. So the questions that are pertinent to you, we're going to go over them. We're going to talk big picture. We'll give you specific action steps. So one of my favorite episodes that we get to do is we get to reply to the questions that you've submitted. So excited for today's conversation, Tommy. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. Thanks for giving us a shot. If you want to know more about our journeys with fasting and the transformations that we've seen and why we do what we do week in and week out with the podcast and the challenges and the coaching and the resources on the website, head back, give episode 0, episode 1 a listen, give you a little bit of insight into the power of fasting and now what we've seen exponentially from just our stories of how fasting transformed our lives into tens of thousands of transformations and messages and results that we've seen as we've approached the 5 million download mark.
Wow.
So shout out to all of you OGs, the long-term Fasting for Lifers, the long-term listeners. Thank you for being on this journey with us. We're truly grateful. Let's give a shout out, Tommy, to one of our favorite reviews, the 5-star kind. We are blessed and grateful to have so many of those.
Yes.
So we want to give a shout out to 5%er. This is Len Fall. So Tommy, break it down.
Yeah, Len Fall says 5 stars. Episode 330 coincided with my third fastiversary, so it really rang true for me. So congrats on your third fastiversary. That's incredible. Thank you for the continuously great info and advice. Len Fall says, I couldn't have done it without you guys guiding the way. Each episode's a building block, makes up the foundation of my fasting lifestyle, providing education and motivation. I've kept off over 50 pounds, increased muscle mass, and have better metabolic health than I did when I was in my 20s, which is 3 decades ago. People always ask me, what did I do? When I tell them I did IF or intermittent fasting, they always say they could never do it. I respond, how is what you're doing now working for you? Keep up the good work. And those are great responses too. And just remember, you don't have to convince anybody, but you are inspiring people, and you never know who you're going to inspire along the way. So keep up the great work, Len Fall. And thank you for dropping that 5-star review.
Len Fall, sounds like you could be a coach. That's a great response, right?
Yeah.
So what are you doing? How's that working for you, right? Like, and not to be dismissive in any way, but that's the dissonance or the reality, right? Mm-hmm. You're doing it. It's working. Keep leading by example, man, and just excited for your results. Thank you so much for taking the time to give us a 5-star review, and hopefully your story, as we always hope, is going to be encouraging for someone else out there, knowing that you are not alone on Fasting Island.
Absolutely.
And that you can truly become part of the 5%. So keep it up. All right, Tommy. Let's get into the meat of today's conversation. We're going to talk. We've got 5 questions that we're going to be going over. Question number 1 came in from Terry. I love your podcast. Thank you. I fast 36 hours twice a week. Love it. I definitely feel better, except for a sore throat, which I believe is caused by acid reflux. Anything I can do to reduce the severity? Man, when you are new to fasting or you start extending your fast, Tommy, I know you and I both struggle with this in the beginning, so let's break it down.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. So your body gets used to whatever it needs to be doing and producing as far as gastric juices, as far as stomach acids, and everything that goes along with the digestion and digestive processes. And so when you start consistently fasting, you're removing some of the need, or you're potentially removing a lot of the need for that same production. And so then you can find yourself with an overabundance of acids that are available, but with nothing to counteract them and counteract the chemistry. So that can be very uncomfortable. So I do remember, popping a few Tums back in the days. But there are some other things that you can do as well that are potentially even better for that. That was just kind of a quick fix that I was used to because, I mean, there were years prior to consistent fasting where I was probably on average about 2 to 3 Tums most days.
Yeah.
And I kind of grew up in a family where that was pretty normal. And I
My
had to
dad,
continue
my
with
dad would
that.
always have his chapstick, his
Yeah.
handkerchief, his comb, and his Tum, or he used to do
Wow.
Rolaids
Yeah.
when
Yep.
he left the
Rolaids. Yep.
house.
Yep. Yep.
Always had
Yep.
a little, like those
My
little
grandfather
individual,
too.
like
They,
lifesaver size
yeah.
packs.
It looked like a Mentos,
Yeah, yeah,
like,
but a
yeah.
small, yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, when you start getting consistent, it's almost it's a good sign, but it can be a deterrent though too
Yeah.
to that consistency. So, I will definitely encourage you that your body starts to get used to a different cadence, a different rhythm, and a different need for less production of all of those stomach acids. But what I found to be really, really helpful, and actually a really quick accelerant of that process was being more conscientious and intentional about food choices. So reducing the carbohydrates, especially the carbohydrates, don't require as much acid, but they tend to make the acid burn more. They tend to make the symptoms worse. Like if you've ever had tomato sauce, like a big helping of spaghetti or something, and then it's like, oh man, like certain things that are more acidic
Pizza.
foods. Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, that can be rough.
So that was a similar experience with me as well as those craft beer, right? Hops,
Sure. Yep.
gluten, some of those things. They typically will just like sit in my gut and ferment almost. That's how I envisioned it. Right? Like ha
Yeah.
ha ha ha, and there's all these little bubbles, right? So big picture, fasting, it's almost like a paradox. Fasting definitely helps with acid reflux in the long term. Like, and so many of us struggled with it, right? But in the short term, it can trigger it, to Tommy's point. So what do you do to allow your body some time to normalize? Because it does get better, and I don't even know if we have Tums in the house anymore. We used to have, my wife was pregnant
Yep.
when I started the fasting journey 6 years ago. And I remember we had these digestive enzymes in the house, and I blew through that like bottle in the beginning when I started doing the 24-hour, 36-hour, 72-hour fast in the beginning.
Yep.
So the reality is some intentionality to your point, Tommy, so carbohydrates, number one trigger for me and for a lot of folks. Alcohol is another one. Spicy foods, citrus,
Late eating.
late. So we'll come to time. Yeah, timing is the second thing I want to talk
Yeah.
about. So when it comes to the foods, is if you are breaking your fast with just after your 36 hours, right, you're hungry, a larger meal is going to cause this to be more prevalent. And then during your fast, you can also use, so during your fast, if it comes up, or after you break your meal are two different scenarios I want to be clear on. The first scenario, you can use apple cider vinegar and or aloe vera juice. Like just a shot, like an ounce of either one of those can help calm that down rather than a Tums or a digestive enzyme that I used to pop like candy in the beginning when my wife had those in the house during her pregnancy.
Yeah.
But then the trigger could be the large meal, the carbohydrate-laden large meal after you break your fast. So you want to stay hydrated. You want to be doing trace minerals or mineral salt like a Redmond's or a Baja Gold, something like that. But then start with easily digested foods. Eat a little bit, wait 10 to 15 minutes, and then eat your larger meal. But only eat to about 75% satiety. This is going to calm down the rebound effect, right, of that larger meal. Because your body has decreased. One of the common misconceptions with acid reflux post meals is, oh, I must have too much stomach acid. A lot of the cases, it's actually too little. So you kind of get this rebound effect, right? And then, Tommy, the second thing is the timing, right? So if it's post meal and you're eating OMAD dinners, definitely like set an eating curfew and get that meal earlier, right?
Absolutely, because you're just like your insulin sensitivity is better earlier in the day. so is your proportional stomach acid production. It
Yep.
it matches up, it aligns better. So if you can bring that meal a little bit earlier, what it does is it doesn't create as much of a propensity or a likelihood for you to overdo it. So if you're like when you're not used to consistent fasting, if you're waiting until towards the end of the day, it can be a little tougher to like close that window. It can be especially in the beginning, it can feel more like a fear of missing out. So then, like you kind of put all of the foods together,
Yep.
in that dinner window. So if you can move the meal a little bit earlier, you tend to do better with those kind of things, which means, to your point, Scott, that you're less likely to overdo it with the food volume, which then helps
Yep.
as well. So they all really kind of work together. But just encouragement again, don't let it deter you. There are it does tend to taper off and improve over time,
Yep.
and these things will help accelerate that process too.
Yep. 100%. All right. Great question. Thanks for submitting it. Let's move on to question number 2. This came in from Keshav, I'm guessing. Apologies if I've butchered that. I'm not going to attempt your last name. Keshav asks, started listening to the podcast a week ago. I'm on the 5th episode. Wow, you went back to the beginning. Thank you.
Nice. Wow.
I've downloaded the blueprint. Just wanted to know, how long after I start fasting 16 to 20 hours a day will I start losing weight? Inquiring minds want to know.
Great question.
Right.
So where to begin? First of all, I didn't see the scale really move until I was at least at that 20-hour mark.
Right.
20 hours, 21 hours. Before that, I saw basically just that I could maintain without further gaining of weight.
So you'd see, some fluctuations on the scale depending on when you ate, what you ate. Right.
For sure.
But kind of just this kind of little bounce up and down effect, right?
Yeah. No consistent downward movement in the
Yep.
scale until I got to about that 20, 21 hour mark. And then really that started to speed up even a little bit more as I got consistent with my OMAD, which was about 30 to 60 minutes. And so then, at that point I was at a 23-hour fast and then saw some consistent results for probably about 20, 23 pounds, somewhere around in there before it kind of tapered off. And then I kind of had to address some of the food choices, some of the emotional relationship with food.
Portion sizes.
Portion sizes was a big one too. And activity level too, because I had tapered off some of my activity level because I had kind of linked up working out and being physically active with
burning calories
and my diet mentality at that point. So I was trying to kind of unwind those. So I was like, you know what? Let me get a hold of my meal timing and my nutrition choices here without adding on deliberate exercise. So I wasn't sedentary, but I wasn't doing deliberate exercise because I wanted to kind of remove that, from all of the attempts to burn some of the fat in the past.
So the complexity with this question, and this is the reality, most people come to fasting to lose weight, right?
Sure.
It's another calorie restriction, eat less, move more. It can fit into that old diet framework, but it also has an entire life, we call it fasting for life, lifestyle application on the other end once you start getting consistent.
Yeah.
And the metabolic effects, like Lenfall, who's like kept off 50 plus pounds, increased muscle mass, and a better metabolic health than when I did when I was in my 20s. Right. We just had another testimonial come in from one of our coaching clients. Still has a little bit more weight to lose, but absolutely crushing it in her labs. They're perfect. And reversed prediabetes and high triglycerides and low HDL and all this stuff, right? So that metabolic health that is ultimately what we want. And this is why fasting is so powerful, because it taps into that insulin resistance or weight loss resistance. The reason I say that, and the reason why this question is so difficult to answer, is because your starting point of how much weight you have to lose, how much sleep you're getting, your relationship with food, your food choices, your hydration, all of that matters in terms of the speed of result you're going to get.
True.
Right? If you're farther down the insulin resistant path and you've done cycles of gaining 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds on and off throughout your lifetime, then you have some substantial amount of weight loss insulin resistance there. maybe some leptin resistance, some emotional relationship with food, inconsistencies, right? But when you look at what's happening metabolically, and we have this on the website, it's the fasting timeline. It's a PDF, right? So it's like 0 to 4 hours. You're just kind of start to burn through the food that you've eaten, right? And you're going to store the excess. And then, 4 to 16 hours, some people will start to tap into that fat burning and autophagy zone. And then 16 to 24 hours, to your point, Tommy, for you is that 20 to 21 hour mark. For me, I was around the same time. That's really where you're ramping up fat burning zone because insulin has come down dramatically.
Also, depending on the calorie density of your foods and your level of insulin resistance and your average meal time, the time of day, all of these things matter. There are
meal composition. Did you say that too? Like food choices?
For sure. Food choices and just overall food volume, because some of us, we choose nutrient dense foods, but also, some people have like a larger appetite than others, and you can sit down with a meal and really get a high level of your maintenance calories in very, very quickly. And that can be part of the balance there that keeps you from seeing the scale move, or that you're bringing on a disproportional insulin response.
Right.
So it could be great calories. You could be in a calorie deficit, but if you're still in a high insulin environment biochemically, then you're going to not necessarily see any change on the scale.
It's going to be slow moving, if moving at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what affects this timeline is what you eat during your eating windows, your activity level, right? If you're sedentary or if you're moving, your sleep quality, 100%. So if you're getting 4 hours of sleep a night, your scale movement is going to be a lot less than that's getting a solid 7 to 8 hours. Because
you might be lucky to maintain at 4 hours or 5 hours. Yeah.
Because of the stress response and the decreased blood sugar and insulin effectiveness that following day, it's harder to stick to your fasting windows and make better food choices. And then your starting point, like I mentioned, where are you on that insulin resistance, weight loss resistance scale? How much weight do you have to lose, et cetera? And then there are some hormonal factors too. So, but if we're going to talk big picture, this is what we see most people is like week 1 to week 2, your body's adapting. You're going to see some water weight changes, right? A couple of pounds up or down on the scale. Week 2 to 4, most people are going to start seeing some measurable fat loss. Most people. But the consistency is the key. So I remember there's this image in the calorie world where it's like Monday through Thursday, hitting my macros, counting my calories, exercise is good. And then the halfway point of the week, everybody, is Thursday at noon.
Yep.
And then, insulin and calories don't matter on the weekend, and you're just a Friday night happy hour that turns into a restart on Monday. You've just undone all of that work. So we shoot for the 80% rule, 6 out of 7 days. You're foundationally fasting, which is what you're talking about here, episode 311, is this 16 to 20 hour fast. The more consistent and longer you stick with it, the more you're going to see that downward trend. So 1 to 2 weeks, adaptation, might see some big swings depending on your food choices and your sleep. And then week 2 to 4 is really where you start to see that, kind of take hold and start to see that downward trajectory. So
yeah,
I think that answers the question because it's hard because of your starting point and all the other factors that we I kind of mentioned. But remember, even before the scale changes, your body is making incredible metabolic improvements behind the scenes or beneath the surface.
100%. So keep going with the blueprint to fasting for fat loss, and shout out to this resource too, because we do kind of go through all of these things and how to ramp up, how to get started, but you really can use those methods with some incredible results, and we have a lot of testimonials for that as well. So when you're thinking about what are you going to do this week, I'm going to encourage you. There are some methods in there where you can do breakfast one day and then lunch the next, or lunch one day and then dinner the next, and that can help you push past that 24-hour mark. So doing that a couple of times can be helpful to see a little bit of new movement on the scale. And the other thing that I would encourage you, if you're used to eating a bit later, go get consistent for the next few days and bring that meal timing a bit earlier, 2, 3, 4 hours earlier, and all of a sudden you might see some new budging of the scale that you haven't seen in a while.
Yep, absolutely. Welcome to the Fasting for Life family as well, Kashav.
Absolutely. Welcome.
And I hope I got your name pronunciation right. Okay.
Yeah.
Next one here. Question submitted from Mary Ellen. She said, I do a 60-minute workout 3 days a week. Is a protein drink okay while doing a 16-hour fast?
Ooh.
What a great question. So if we're going to go strict, dogmatic, clean fasting, then no, it's not okay because it technically breaks your fast.
Mm-hmm.
But we can move that line in the sand wherever we want. And here's an example. So there's water fasting, there's bone broth fasting, there's sardine fasting, there's clean versus dirty fasting, right? There's water only fasting, but then there's also something called dry fasting, where you don't drink any water during your fast. And we're not a proponent of this, don't have any experience with it, don't recommend it.
Sounds terrible.
Sounds terrible. Never done it. Maybe someone on the other side would be like, no, you have to do it. It's amazing. Who knows?
All right.
So speaking outside of my pay grade here, but in dry fasting, there's also two subsets of where we can move that line even farther, which is soft and hard dry fasting. Soft dry fasting is you can still brush your teeth and go swimming and take a shower.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Okay.
Hard dry fasting, I just think an extended hard dry fast, like you might need to take a shower and need some deodorant and brushing your teeth, right?
Yeah.
But hard dry fasting is you don't touch water at all. So it's like, where does this line in the sand live for you, Mary Ellen? Now, the missing information that we have here is, are you at maintenance? Are you still in an aggressive fat loss phase? How much weight do you have to lose? Or like where are you in this process?
Yeah.
For me, I'm at body recomposition. So I'm at working on the last few pounds of visceral fat. I've lost 90 to 95% of the weight I wanted to lose. So for me, even on my OMAD or TMAD days, I need to prioritize protein, right, for muscle growth and muscle building for the benefit from the workout. So I use the little Fairlife 150 calorie, 30 gram protein shakes, and I put them in my coffee. So did I technically break my fast? Yes. But if my goal is protein is in the priority seat, sleep is in that priority seat for me as well, and that muscle growth, body composition, lean muscle mass is in one of those priority seats as well, then for me it makes sense. So just keep in mind, though, depending on where you're at, if your goal is to build lean muscle, then we need to prioritize protein. Then to me, it makes sense that you would have a protein drink to fuel that process and get the benefit from the workout that you just did.
Sure, sure. Now, if you do have fat stores that you want to lose, right? You want to pay back some of that calorie debt, some of those pre-eaten calories from before, then you will be slowing down that process a bit, you know, with bringing in some additional fuel right now. Okay. So I'm just going to take the other side for a minute here, which would be that, hey, a 16-hour fast is really, really good. It's great. If you are looking to burn through some fat stores, or even at maintenance, what's the purpose of the protein drink? Because I'll go a step further and say, during the other 8 hours, don't you have enough time to bring in any of the protein that you want during that time?
So here's what I'm hearing you going towards, and tell me if I'm right or wrong. But you can schedule your eating window to include your pre or post meal where you get that protein in.
Yeah, 100%.
Because this anabolic window has been slightly disproven recently, where it's the consistency of the day-to-day and week-to-week protein intake, not the specific timing of the protein intake around your workout. And, well, should I work out fasted or fed? I don't like working out with food in my belly. I like working out fasted.
Yeah, me too.
But the net benefit over the 24-hour period is the same. If you work out fasted, you're going to have a little bit more fat oxidation during your workout, but then it's going to slow down over the course of the next 24 hours. If you work out fed, you're going to have less during your workout, but then you're going to have a little bit more burn over the next 24 hours. It's a net zero. So it's what works for you personally. Yeah. So you could move your eating window, Tommy, to your point, to where you work out and then you break your fast with a protein-based meal.
Yeah.
Or if the workout's later in the day, then you could have a nice protein-based meal, give it a little time, and then go do your workout.
100%,
so it's in or outside of your fasting window, and that might just be the clear differentiator that you were looking for, Mary Ellen.
Yeah, it could be. For me, 16-hour fast is not long enough, even in maintenance. I just don't feel great if I have 8 hours to just eat. I'll just overdo it. I
I'm
will
more of a
have
4-hour TMAD guy, I think.
4 hours great for me. It's good boundaries, and enough time for me to get in full nutritional needs, full protein needs, and that just works for me. So for me personally, if I wanted to bring in a protein drink like this, during your workout part of the week, 3 days a week, then for me, what would work better would be adding that in along with probably like a 3 to 4 hour nutrition opportunity window. And then I might have the protein drink before that nutrition opportunity window. So that would work better for me. This would just be too long of a nutrition window.
Yep, I agree. All right, Marilyn. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, shoot us another message. We'll get back to you.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great conversation for anyone trying to adopt a fasting lifestyle, which is why we kind of choose some of these.
Yeah.
Because
Obviously,
there's
there's
bigger, broad strokes to everybody. Go ahead.
absolutely, and there's no perfect answer here,
Right.
too, which is why it's great. So I love the question.
Yep. All right, 2 questions left. Next question comes in from a truck driver.
Oh, cool.
Isaiah? Mr. Torres.
There you go.
Hello, guys. Thank you for what you do to help those who need to understand the importance of fasting. Want to know, I
Nice.
started a week ago, and I'm feeling great doing it. I drink a lot of water every day, but the minute I'm drinking, I have to go to the restroom.
Sure.
So I still experience this when we take our family trip to Florida and we drive 10 hours, right? Like I'm the dad who doesn't want to have to pee
Right.
and make an additional stop. I can
No
blame my
stops.
kids and my wife for those, right?
Yep.
And you have to go to the restroom. So as a truck driver, that's rough because I constantly have to stop somewhere. Is that normal? So to answer your question, yes, it's completely normal, especially when you start. I'll explain why in a second. Caffeine and energy drinks and those types of things can have an amplified diuretic effect. They're not dehydrative. They don't dehydrate you. Coffee, that's a myth. It doesn't dehydrate you, but it is a mild diuretic, which makes you go pee more. So diuresis is what you're experiencing, Mr. Torres. So when you start fasting or going low carb, your glycogen stores deplete. So your short-term glucose. And every gram of glycogen or glucose in your body needs 3 to 4 grams of water bundled to it for storage.
Yep.
So when you start fasting, insulin comes down and or going low carb, same thing comes down. That tells aldosterone to tell the kidneys to get rid of this excess water. This is the whoosh, right, that you'll feel, literally and figuratively. So this is a temporary adaptation to the new rhythm of consistency that you're doing with your fasting efforts. So it's not just that you're drinking more water. We don't want that. What we want you to do is hydrate properly, which is adding in some electrolytes to retain that water when the kidneys are trying to get rid of it, to balance that osmotic kind of relationship in your body, because those excess minerals go out, water goes out with it. We want to replenish those minerals on your fasting days. So some form of electrolyte, we like Element, we like Redmond's, we like Baja Gold, Himalayan salt. Putting that into your water, rather than just drinking more water, which is just going to get flushed out, we're going to be putting in those minerals that help balance that equation out and slow this process down.
Yeah, and we'll put a special link in the podcast notes for free box of Element for your with your first purchase. So it's a good thing to understand that it's a positive affirmation of the process and your consistency. And so when that's happening, Mr. Torres, you're probably also noticing if you jump on the scale that it's moving down, or you can see a good shift, a good downward shift, because you are dropping some of that glycogen and water weight. And so that's a good sign, because that has to happen before you can start tapping into those long-term fat stores. So it's not just that you're losing water, it's the first step. It's the first domino that has to start falling. So in order for you to tap into those long-term fat stores. So keep doing what you're doing, and then add in some of that deliberate hydration, and you'll probably see that your body starts to kind of balance out the process. And then as you become more and more intentional with your food choices too, and keep those glycogen stores low, that you don't have to necessarily go through that process over and over and over again. You can stay relatively low on the glycogen and excess water weight side of the scale, assuming that you don't, kind of have multiple bigger meals and then kind of put those stores back on, so you can stay on the right side of that and then not necessarily continue to have the diuretic effects over and over and over again, right, Scott?
Yep, absolutely. So for you specifically, Mr. Torres, is front load your hydration during your stops and your breaks, whatever that looks like for you, or back load if it's after your drive. Because I don't know if you're doing overnight, cross state, not really sure. You're doing local, depends. I can't imagine if you're driving a big tractor trailer that stopping locally in small towns and stuff to hit a gas station is easy either.
No
So
kidding.
you want to reduce your intake. So hydration, proper hydration, so minerals and salts first. Either front load or back load your hydration to when you stop. So reduce your intake 1 to 2 hours before long drives. And sip on this water rather than gulp it. So these are all levers you can pull to minimize this initial kind of transition period. And it'll also create really great hydration habits moving forward too. So for me personally, I work from home, but I'm on calls all day. So when I wake up, I do 40 ounces of water with some minerals and salt, and I drink that before I get to my coffee.
Nice. Yep.
On the days I don't do that, I find myself drinking a lot more throughout the day and having to go to the bathroom a lot more, even now at this point in my fasting journey.
Yeah.
If I'm not intentionally front loading my day with hydration, then I'm always trying to catch up later in the day, and then that can be sleep disruptive and et cetera, et cetera. I know it's not apples to apples in terms of the application,
Sure.
but just some insight into the water and hydration kind of process.
Yeah, slow and steady definitely wins that race, right?
Yep.
And then the other cool thing is that when you stay in that more glycogen depleted state, you start to tap into those long-term fat stores, and you kind of stay in that pocket right there. Then what you find also, Mr. Torres, is that your energy levels are more consistent. So you may find that you need a little bit less caffeine. So not only do you become like a smaller, more efficient version of yourself and need a little less caffeine potentially, but then you also find that your energy levels are more stable because they're not fluctuating as much with this blood sugar and insulin spikes. So that can be really good too, because then when you're not having to, dose up the caffeine so often during the middle of these drives, then you don't find yourself, needing to stop as much and use the restroom.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Mr. Torres, hopefully that helps. Good luck on the road. Be safe. Let us know how you're doing and keep up the great work. Welcome to the Fasting for Life family.
Yes.
Okay, the last question we have. It's a very long one, so I'm going to summarize it, Tommy. This came in from Candace.
Okay.
And initially she says, hello, gentlemen. I've been doing intermittent fasting for about 5 years. I always usually did around 18 to 6, but I always had half and half and a squirt of caramel flavor in my coffee in the mornings and then lunch and dinner. I'd usually have a couple of alcoholic beverages with my dinner. About 6 weeks ago, I decided to ramp things up. I cut the cream and caramel out of my coffee. I've been doing OMAD and no drinking. For my one meal, I usually try to get a good source of protein, healthy fat, wide variety of vegetables and nutrients, so I'm not lacking anything. I do eat carbs, but I try to limit them. I take some supplements. So really, it's 5 years of IF experience, did OMAD for a month, or was doing 18.6. Hang on here. I want to get this right. So prior to this, for 1 month, doing OMAD and lost 22 pounds in 4 weeks.
Wow.
Like, shout out. That's
Incredible.
amazing.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into the second half of this conversation, she mentions that in about a month, she has a daughter's wedding and she wants to lose another 20 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So, anyone out there that's listening, 22 pounds in a month doing OMAD is unbelievable accelerated weight loss.
Agreed.
That's not common. This happened to my dad. This happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got 40 pounds to lose, there's about 2 points in this weight loss journey where you're going to hit the AKA dreaded plateau. What we like to call momentary maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of physiology that's going on behind the scenes and hormones and growth hormone and regulation. And your body will literally throw a three-pronged physiological temper tantrum to help you regain the weight and increase those hunger cues, because it is a survival mechanism. Winter is coming. We need to store. Your body has a weight set point memory. It's called the set point theory. So I want to say that now before we get into some of the specifics, because wanting to lose another 20 pounds in the next month is a very lofty goal. Now, Tommy, you said this when we were prepping for this question is, well, you could just fast until the wedding. That's not our recommendation.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. The weight will come off. But the fact is that you have had an incredible weight loss in a very short period of time. Your body is now at a point where it needs to re-regulate. So what happened with Candace is she decided to do a 72-hour fast.
Okay.
Kind of at the end of this month. So more fasting must be better.
Sure.
Right? Now I'm taking some liberties here, but that's how my mind used to work.
Yep.
But gained 5 pounds after our birthday splurge, and she hasn't lost it despite returning to clean eating and exercise.
Yep.
So, very physically active job, daughter's wedding's in a month, wants to lose an additional 20 pounds. So, what is happening and what to do now, Tommy? That's the question.
Well, I mean, you just hit the nail on the head, Scott, whenever you said your body goes into that winter is coming mode. And a longer extended fast really puts us into a spot where if we're not careful, we can really do some undoing. We can do some short-term metabolic damage. We can give the wrong signals to the wrong hormones at the wrong time and put the body into winter is coming mode and then really give it something to store. Unfortunately, if we have the wrong timing. So a 72-hour fast plus an indulgent kind of meal or multiple sets of meals like that really can create a perfect storm situation. So encouragement here is that it's absolutely not the end of the world. It can and will be undone, but that's what's likely going on here. And I've been in that same situation before.
Yep.
Where I've done a 5 or a 7 day fast, and more at kind of the beginning stages or the first couple of times that I did those, I broke a 7 day fast one time at a Tex-Mex restaurant.
No.
I regretted the heck out of it, and I paid for it on the scale. I felt terrible for about 48 hours. So you kind of live and learn through some of those things.
Yep.
So all that being said, consistency absolutely wins. But if you're feeling like frustrated and down about it, then it's likely going to mess with your mindset on your consistency. So I'm going to give 2 points of encouragement. One is keep up the consistency right now. And number 2 is ease up on the expectation right now, because expecting another 20 pounds, like in such a short period of time, when things just went the other way right now, is really kind of another psychological perfect storm. So I'm going to encourage you to ease off of that expectation so that you can take the next action that's more likely to get you a short-term win here. Okay. Does that make sense?
It does. So I love your goal, first and foremost. I love the results you've gotten. But this is one of the things that we see with an OMAD type approach. There's 4 faces of OMAD. We call it the many faces of OMAD. An intentional weight loss strategy, an intentional maintenance strategy, an unintentional regain strategy, right? So we need to vary this a little bit, and we'll give you some action steps here, but this is a complex metabolic situation, not just a simple like calorie intake issue. So you've got your refeed response, your hormonal adaptation, your body's temper tantrum, your exercise recovery. She has a very active job, gardens for hours a day, cleans houses. That all falls into the non-exercise activity thermogenesis category, the NEAT category.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just like activities of daily living, right? So you probably have a little bit higher, more demand for intake than someone who's more sedentary, just from a basal metabolic rate standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So after the 72-hour fast, what happened? Well, your glycogen stores were completely depleted, and the birthday meal, alcohol, and then subsequent couple of decisions after that process replenished your glycogen.
While insulin was at very low levels.
While insulin was damn near non-existent.
Yeah, and all of a sudden insulin had to spike just off the charts to combat the food choices and the alcohol after that.
Yep. So 5 pounds is mostly water of what you've regained. I just want to encourage you.
Hmm.
But I've also had this happen where when you do a longer fast, you move out of the nutritional weight loss ketosis range into a deeper level of therapeutic ketosis. So I've done a 13-day fast, a 14-day fast, multiple 5-day fasts. I like to do a 5 to 7-day fast 1 to 2 times a year just as like a reset.
Yeah.
But typically on day 2, day 3, the scale doesn't move. You're like, how's that possible? I haven't eaten anything. Well, your body is shifting into repair mode and not weight loss nutritional mode, ketosis mode. So because of your physically demanding job, your gym sauna several times a week, your extended fasting, there's a little bit of stress or pressure, to Tommy's point about this upcoming wedding. So you asked the question about, you've heard about women should fast differently than men. I agree completely around your menstrual cycle, depending on if you're still normal cycle, pre or perimenopause, or post-menopause. There are a couple of different levers that we need to address. It's hard to do that for you as an individual without knowing more specifics, but broad strokes, you've got your follicular phase and your luteal phase, your first half and your second half, right? And in your follicular phase, this is where menses begins, and then estrogen's going to peak, and then ovulation happens, and then estrogen comes down, and then progesterone's going to peak in that luteal phase. So in the long term, yes, women should be fasting a little bit differently. In the short term, you can still use standard fasting techniques as long as you're not seeing some of the warning signs of it being too much of a stressor, meaning you've got mood changes or swings or hangriness or sleep disruption or wired and tired, anxiousness, brain fog. Those types of things is telling us big swings in body temperature change, right? Those are the warning signs of, hey, you're doing too much right now. And you're stressing your stress response, your HPA axis a little bit too much.
Yeah.
So the body kind of kicked into protective mode. And this happens regardless if you did a 72-hour fast or not. You were probably going to plateau at this point with a 40 to 45 pound weight goal. Anywhere between that 15 to 20, 21, 22, 25 pounds, you're going to plateau. Your body is going to naturally be like, hey, we need to recalibrate here.
It can take some time.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are a couple things that you can do is I want to see you shift your eating window from nighttime to morning, midday.
Powerful.
You're going to increase your insulin sensitivity. An 8 a.m. meal versus an 8 p.m. meal. You have a 30% less insulin response at night. So you're less insulin sensitive at night. So alcohol and carbs, to your point that you mentioned, Candace, those aren't going to be processed as well and disrupt sleep and make the next day of fasting that much more difficult.
Yeah.
Mentally and metabolically. So one of the levers I want to see you do is, yes, go back to OMAD, but move it, or TMAD, but move it earlier in the day. And then if you are going through a normal menstrual cycle at this point, as you get into the day 21 through 28, that's where we want to have less longer fasts and more consistent nutrient-dense, shorter fasting nutrition windows kind of paired together.
Yeah. And I would double down on your prioritizing protein as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, start
It's
there.
a superpower.
Absolutely it is. And it doesn't happen by accident. But here's the cool thing, Candace. When you are intentional about your protein, your body can't screw up protein. Okay?
Yeah.
And
very hard to do.
Cravings come down. It makes the next fast that much easier. It is
hunger
quick.
Hormones.
Absolutely. It's also quick to help you deplete those glycogen stores that you're holding on to right now. And then also you are putting your body in the best situation to not have a scarcity situation going on, which is like, the exactly what happened with the 72-hour fast, and then not being very intentional about food choices and things like that afterwards. What happens there is basically the opposite of consistent protein pacing whenever you're going to break your fast. So, you don't need 72-hour fasts for fat loss purposes. So I want to encourage you there too. We find the sweet spot somewhere between 30 to 48 hours generally, even for I got some big fat loss goals. That tends to be just a really great range where most people don't need to go beyond that because of some of the things that you've mentioned here. It can make it that much tougher.
Yep, absolutely. So birthday celebration, you enjoyed yourself. Congratulations on the 22-pound weight loss. The scale is going to start moving again. You just need to give your body a moment to catch up. You've proven yourself you can do it. You absolutely can. And I want to make one mention, and then we're going to wrap up today's episode, is that when you hit these plateaus, this is where we typically will see non-scale victories kind of come in and happen beneath the surface. So I want you to pay attention to them. Your inflammation, your sleep, your stress, handling of stress, your food decisions. But really, one of the biggest ones is how clothes fit. We'll see body composition change where the scale might not be moving, but that pair of jeans or that dress fits better. This is your body kind of recalibrating through the process. So I love plateaus or momentary maintenances, as we call them, because this is typically where you'll see the clothes fit better and those non-scale victories come in, and that's all part of the process. I just want to encourage you and everyone that this is 100% part of the process.
Yeah.
And what you do now to keep that momentum and consistency is the scale will come back online and catch up with you.
Yeah.
So please keep going. Please keep going. You're doing great. All right,
Great
Tommy.
reminders. Great reminder, Scott. Thank you.
5 questions for today's Q&A. I want to thank all of you for submitted these questions. Fasting for lifers, new folks, welcome in. Fasting's a tool like any tool. It works best when you understand how to use it for your specific situation. This is why we do the challenges. We got a next one coming up on June 10th.
Yes.
This is why we do coaching, because there are some specific, not how long should I fast, but how do I make fasting work for you? What's that personalization, that customization? That's what we really focus on. And when we do these Q&As, we get to do it in real time to everybody out there.
Yeah.
So I love it.
So cool.
If you have questions you want us to answer, please submit them. info@thefastingforlife.com. You want to grab the blueprint to fasting for fat loss, you can head to the website. It's in the show notes. You want to grab the sample pack of the element electrolytes that we mentioned. That's in the show notes as well. Challenge coming up on the 10th, Tommy. Love it. Thank you guys so much, Tommy. As always, man, I appreciate the conversation. We will talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.
So, you've heard today's episode, and you may be wondering, where do I start? Head on over to thefastingforlife.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive fasting tips and strategies to maximize results and fit fasting into your day-to-day life.
While you're there, download your free Fast Start guide to get started today. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Fasting for Life.